Right now, across southern England, the rain will not stop. This is not a weather event anymore. The Met Office has admitted something they have never said in modern history. The storm train has no off switch. Towns are vanishing beneath water that rises faster than emergency teams can respond. Pumps are failing. Roads are disappearing. Families are trapped on upper floors watching streets turn into rivers in minutes. Scientists monitoring atmospheric patterns are seeing something that terrifies them. A conveyor belt of storms locked over Britain with no mechanism to break the cycle. The water is not receding. It is accumulating. And what is happening beneath the ground may be worse than anything on the surface. The realization hits at 6:47 a.m. on February 12, 2026. Met Office Chief Forecaster Paul Gunderson stands in front of a satellite map that shows what meteorologists are now calling the impossible pattern. 7 consecutive Atlantic storm systems are lined up like freight cars on a track, each one feeding moisture and energy into the next, each one aimed directly at the British Isles. The conveyor belt stretched 3,000 miles across the ocean, and it is not moving. It is locked in place. Gunderson's statement, released at 9:15 a.m., contains language never before used in official Met Office communication. The atmospheric configuration currently over the UK shows no signs of breakdown. The storm train mechanism will continue delivering significant rainfall for the foreseeable period. Foreseeable period. Not days. Not a week. The man responsible for forecasting Britain's weather cannot tell the public when this ends because the models show no end. Within an hour, the Environment Agency escalates its national response. 127 flood warnings are now active across England and Wales. 274 flood alerts sit on top of that. But those numbers are already outdated by the time they post. In Somerset, emergency coordinators are receiving reports of water levels rising in areas that were dry 2 hours ago. The rain is not coming in pulses anymore. It is constant. It is relentless. And the ground stopped absorbing it 3 weeks ago. At 11:30 a.m., the first evacuation order goes out in Moreland. Not a warning. Not advice. An order. Police vehicles move through streets with loudspeakers. Residents are told they have 2 hours to collect essential items and leave. The same village that sat underwater for weeks in 2014 is about to go under again. But this time, officials are not waiting to see how high the water climbs. They already know. In Boroughbridge, a farmer named Alan Dexter watches water pour across his land from 3 directions simultaneously. The River Perrott is over its banks. The drainage channels are running backward. And now, water is bubbling up from the ground itself. Not seeping, bubbling, like the earth is vomiting. He calls it that when he phones the council emergency line. The operator does not correct him. She has heard the same description from 14 other calls in the last hour. Groundwater. The word is spreading through official channels like a contagion. Dorset Council's monitoring stations are showing readings that engineers initially assume are instrument malfunctions. Gauges designed to measure groundwater depth are maxing out. The needles are pinned. The digital readouts display error codes. When technicians arrive on site to recalibrate, they discover the instruments are working perfectly. The water table has risen beyond the measurement range. No one knows how high it actually is because no one designed equipment to measure this scenario. 18,000 properties across southern England now sit above groundwater that has nowhere left to go but up. These are not houses near rivers. These are homes miles from any visible watercourse, sitting on land that has been dry for generations. Basements are filling from below. Foundations are cracking as saturated soil expands. Car parks are turning into ponds with no rain falling directly on them. The water is coming from underneath. By 2 p.m., the A361, one of Somerset's primary evacuation routes, is closed. The road has not flooded over. The road has collapsed. A 40-meter section of asphalt has dropped into a sinkhole created by subsurface water erosion. 2 cars were on that stretch when it went. Emergency services pull both drivers out alive. But the message is clear. The infrastructure is failing faster than the water is rising. In Bristol, engineers monitoring the city's Victorian sewer system are watching pressure sensors climb into the red. The network was designed to handle rainwater runoff during heavy storms. It was not designed to handle continuous input for 17 consecutive days. At 3:45 p.m., a manhole cover on Park Street explodes upward from hydraulic pressure. A geyser of water and sewage erupts 12 feet into the air. Shoppers scatter. The street floods within minutes. This is not river flooding. This is system collapse. Meanwhile, the seventh storm in the Atlantic train is intensifying. Meteorologists are calling it Storm Elliott, and it is pulling moisture from subtropical systems near the Azores. The energy feeding into Elliott is the same energy that fueled Hurricane 4 systems in the Caribbean. But Elliott is not a hurricane. It is a cold core extratropical system, which means it will not weaken as it approaches land. It will strengthen, and it is aimed at southern England with the precision of a guided missile. By 5 p.m., the evacuation orders expand. Northmoor, Saltmoor, Mushelney, Langport. These are not neighborhoods. These are entire communities. The Somerset levels, 650 square kilometers of low-lying farmland, are being systematically cleared. Rest centers in Taunton, Bridgewater, and Glastonbury are filling beyond capacity. The Red Cross is setting up temporary shelters in school gymnasiums. Salvation Army volunteers are distributing blankets and hot meals to families who left their homes with nothing but the clothes they are wearing. In one of those shelters, a woman named Sarah Milliken sits on a folding chair holding a plastic bag containing her daughter's medication, her mother's reading glasses, and a stuffed rabbit her son refused to leave behind. She does not know if her house is underwater yet. She does not know if she will have a house to return to. She knows only that a police officer told her to leave, and she left. Her husband is still at the house, trying to move furniture upstairs. He promised he would leave before dark. It is 6:30 p.m., and he is not answering his phone. At 7:15 p.m., the power goes out in Moreland. Not from storm damage, from a deliberate shutdown. Engineers at Western Power Distribution have made the decision to de-energize the grid in flood risk zones to prevent electrocution hazards. Homes that still have residents inside are now sitting in darkness, surrounded by rising water, with no heating and no way to charge phones. Emergency services are operating on backup generators. The pumps keeping Northmoor and Saltmoor from total inundation are running on diesel reserves that will last 72 hours if refueling trucks can reach them. The roads are underwater. The trucks cannot reach them. The Met Office updates its forecast at 8 p.m. Another yellow rain warning. Another band of heavy precipitation moving in overnight. But buried in the technical language is a sentence that sends a chill through every emergency coordinator reading it. Confidence in the breakdown of the current atmospheric pattern remains very low. Translation: they do not know when this stops. The models are not showing a breakup. The jet stream is locked. The storm train is feeding itself. In Wales, the residents of Clydech Terrace, the UK's first official climate evacuees, are watching the news from their temporary accommodations. They recognize the language officials are using because they heard the same language in 2020 before Storm Dennis destroyed their street. Be prepared to evacuate. Remain vigilant. Conditions may deteriorate rapidly. They know what those phrases mean. They mean the authorities are losing control. At 9:30 p.m., the Thames barrier closes for the third time in a week. The massive steel gates, designed to protect London from storm surges, are now being deployed to manage river flow backed up by relentless rainfall upstream. The River Thames is not tidal right now. It is a dam. And behind that dam, towns along the upper Thames Valley are starting to flood. Maidenhead, Reading, Oxford. These are not rural villages. These are major population centers. By 10 p.m., the National Flood Defense System is operating at 94% capacity. 16,200 properties are being actively protected by barriers, walls, and pumps. That number sounds like success until you understand what it actually means. It means 16,200 homes are one pump failure, one barrier breach, one power outage away from going under. And 300 properties have already failed. 300 families are already displaced. The defenses are holding, but they are holding by millimeters. At 11:45 p.m., emergency services in Somerset receive a call from a home in Mushelney. A man in his 70s, diabetic, unable to walk without assistance, refused to evacuate earlier in the day. Now the water is inside his house. It is at his knees. He is calling from upstairs. He cannot get down. He cannot get out. The rescue team dispatches a boat. The boat cannot reach him. The current is too strong. A helicopter is requested. The helicopter is grounded. Visibility is 0. The rain is too heavy. The man is told to go to the highest point in the house and wait. Wait for what? He asks. Wait for the water to stop rising, they tell him. But no one believes that anymore. Storm Elliott makes landfall at 2:30 a.m. on February 13th. Wind is not the threat. The threat is the rain. 6 inches fall in 4 hours across Devon and Somerset. Rivers that were at peak capacity overflow in minutes. The River Parrett breaches its banks in 11 locations simultaneously. The River Tone, the River Axe, the River Brew, all of them are now part of one massive inland sea covering the Somerset levels. From satellite imagery, the region no longer looks like farmland. It looks like a lake with rooftops. At 5 a.m., the major incident declaration in Somerset is escalated to a national emergency. COBRA, the UK government's emergency response committee, convenes in London. The Prime Minister is briefed. The military is placed on standby. But no one in that room can answer the question everyone is asking. How do you fight water that will not stop coming? By 6 a.m., the evacuation zone expands again. Glastonbury, Street, Wells, towns that have never flooded in recorded history are now issuing evacuation advisories. The water is not following rivers anymore. It is following gravity. It is spreading across any low-lying land, and southern England is running out of high ground. At 7:30 a.m., the man in Mushelney is rescued by a military helicopter after the rain pauses long enough for a flight window. He is hypothermic. He is traumatized, but he is alive. His house is not. The ground floor is destroyed. The structure is unsafe. He will not go back. By 8 a.m. on February 13th, the storm train is still locked in place. The 8th system is forming in the Atlantic. Meteorologists are running out of names. More importantly, they are running out of explanations. The jet stream configuration holding this pattern should have broken by now. Atmospheric models do not show this kind of persistence. But the atmosphere does not care what the models show. In Dorset, groundwater is surfacing in residential streets 15 miles from the nearest river. In Somerset, fields that were underwater in January are now underwater again, deeper than before. In Wales, councils are reviewing which communities will be next for managed retreat. And across southern England, families are asking the same question officials cannot answer. When does this end? The Met Office has no answer. The Environment Agency has no timeline. The storm train has no off switch. And beneath the ground, water is rising in places instruments cannot measure, through soil that cannot drain, toward homes that cannot be saved. The rain continues. The evacuations continue, and the realization is setting in that this is not a disaster with an ending. This is a new normal no one is prepared to live with.